So we're live and we can start the pre-meeting discussions at any point or other conversations
Did I
as
hear you say
needed.
we don't have a quorum?
So yeah, it looks like we're not gonna have a quorum today. And so we're gonna basically, if that ends up being the case, just do an informal review of this Tempo Hotel project and get the most out of the review as we can.
So who else is coming?
Probably nobody.
This might be it.
Yeah, just us.
5 out of 9 is a quorum technically.
I mean, I'm not scared of Robin.
I will join.
I know, I was almost wondering that, but so usually our attendance is really very good, and then all of a sudden at one meeting, it's like, yeah.
It is August too.
It is, so it's a tough time of year.
Well, I'm sorry to that, but
Yeah, we've spoken a little bit earlier, and it's unfortunate.
did not.
I knew a couple folks would be out of town, and then realized it was gonna be more than that earlier today.
So there's the downtown commission moved their meeting time basically from being the second Friday to being the last Friday of the month.
Okay.
Which means for this project, I don't know about projects going forward, but for this one at least, we're reviewing it. We're going to be reviewing it here before.
Now we might actually do it before the official.
It's probably still going to be that way. And I don't know that I have consensus within the downtown commission, but I think that that's right. Because we're actually reviewing projects, DTC should be reviewing what's getting approved from a policy perspective and then making determinations based on that.
Yeah, and it seemed like it may not be the absolute perfect way, but it's really the only way right now. It seems like their
Yeah.
schedule's next.
And we might be able to have projects still go to downtown commission first if we get them enough time to schedule it. So it won't happen every time, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's a change in the way we're doing
Yep.
things. Second thing is that on our, I'm looking at the pre-agenda, not the draft agenda, but the pre-agenda to the downtown meeting next week. And we are talking design guidelines, so staff has already been meeting, talking about some stuff on design guidelines, and they're gonna start pulling us into that conversation
Right.
next week, is
Yep.
my understanding.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
Pulling
At the downtown commission meeting.
and hopefully I'll be able to loop this group in through the downtown commission on the design guideline discussion that staff has already had. Does that make sense? What else, that this group needs to know about? There is a working group getting a task, the, I-26, I know Vidilla's.
The aesthetics committee thing.
Yeah, is that what they're calling it? Aesthetics committee?
That's what it was called for a long time. I don't know
I
if
don't
that's
like
what you're
that.
talking about or.
For I-26.
We're way more than aesthetics. There should be, I'm gonna try to make sure that there's like input from this group
Okay.
into that group.
Okay.
Is my goal. So I know
Yep.
downtown commission is the umbrella slash, we're the sponsoring, whatever, we're the public sponsoring piece of the I-26 connector review piece. We're the,
Okay.
we've been kind of designated by council as the mediating, whatever. So that's
We
where.
meeting downtown commission or we meeting?
The downtown commission. There's four of us now, on this board that are also on DTC. Ricardo, Robin, Stephen Lee, and myself. But I want to make sure that this group gets to have input, because that seems like a reasonable thing. Like DRC should have some input on the connector project.
So,
Yeah.
Dana is letting me know that it's the Patton Avenue downtown corridor study. So
Right.
it's part of the I-26 connector project, but it's
Yeah,
that
but it's just that piece.
reimagined, the bridge and then the connection into
It's the bridge and
downtown.
the
And
connection.
she says it'll be a
Is it the piece
subcommittee.
that's already been designed once in the past by the
Kind-
Asheville Design Center?
Kind of.
Parsa design.
Kind of, but see, all of that stuff was like given the final designers frameworks to do, and now we're gonna be reviewing the actual stuff that's
Mhm.
coming in the door.
So the downtown
So,
commission will be a subcommittee, it'll be a subcommittee of the downtown commission, and the downtown commission will have 2 reps on this advisory committee.
Right. My take on that, though, so there's, the DRC has no official remit over that. There's like no UDO or anywhere else where, to review like the passion.
Right.
Kind of do, but kind of don't, because it's not really, it's like an infrastructure project. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's not a hotel, it's not a level 1, level 2, level 3. You know what I'm trying to say? It's not that kind of thing, but it seems like we should be able to have input. So I'm trying to figure that out so that I can figure out how to bring that here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely something to think about and figure out a way to try to do that.
Who
Sure.
else is, what are the other membership in the advisory committee scaling up on that project?
There's folks from like the Multimodal Transportation Committee, Hillcrest, Housing Authority, Mountain True. There's a design professional slot, TBD, a real estate broker slot. So it's maybe a
There's
50,
some slots that haven't been filled.
looks that way.
I'm breaking these things up for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, zoning, that whole area needs to be rezoned too. I mean, right now it's all highway. and
Or- yeah, or
we're
not
creating
zoned, yeah.
development Parcels.
Yep.
Which will have no zoning to them.
Right.
So
Right.
is there a zoning?
That's part of the discussion.
Component?
I think that's like a subject that'll be discussed. There's not like a zoning person on this subcommittee, but I think that's like one of the steps probably to, move that area forward as it changes and
When
redevelops.
do we go live?
Well, we're streaming now, and we can start the meeting at any point.
Oh, okay.
I would just put my name in the hat for, other than me being like
Mm-hmm.
many tentacles down the road in this body.
Sure.
For a design professional.
Okay.
Because that was part of that whole thing.
Okay. And Dana's following, so she's been passing me some notes, which has been helpful. She says that Badilla Safika from our staff is the point person on that, and that you all need to speak in your mics better.
Hey, Dana.
There you go.
You got to put on your FM voice.
That's
Okay,
right.
So that's all I know about right now on things that we've talked about in the past, design guidelines, the connector, Pike Squares. If you have not put in your feedback on Pike Square, the visioning, the draft plan's out. If you haven't done that as a design professional, y'all,
Yeah.
please do so.
Last thing is that Dana did clarify that the downtown commission will be talking about the guidelines next month, not
Not
next
this month.
Yeah. that's
Okay,
next
yeah,
month.
yeah.
But we have been talking internally very
Sorry, Dana, you told me that.
pre-scoping. So yeah. Great.
I like talking to Dana through the microphone and
Yeah,
hearing
it's kinda
it come
funny.
from
Yeah,
over there.
it's like-
That's different.
Reaching out to all the callers at home, yeah.
All right,
10.
so should we get started with the meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Boom.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Boer, and I would like to welcome you to the August 17th, 2023 Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the riverfront, and the new hotel overlay zoning districts. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. All committee members and staff are participating in person. We are streaming live in our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. I will now take roll call. Do I need to call the names?
No, you can note perhaps who's out and who's here.
Okay, Jeremy Goldstein is not present. Catherine Ankaya is not present. Stephen Lee Johnson,
Here.
Thomas McLaughlin, not present. Michael McDonough, Brian Moffett,
Here.
Robin Rains is not present, and Ricardo Sejo is not present. We do not have a quorum. It would require at least 5 members, and we only have 4 today. But we are still going to do an informal review, as I'm told, so.
Yeah, so, you know, in light of not having a quorum today, we can't officially vote on anything, either the minutes or the review of this Tempo Hotel project, but we can still have an informal staff presentation and discussion with the applicant that'll hopefully be beneficial, and we'll just continue the item to the September, sorry.
Well, can I just ask, when did we know we weren't gonna have a quorum?
About 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew a couple folks weren't going to be here for sure, and then a couple folks are under the weather. So we weren't going to have full attendance, but I thought we were going to have a quorum until earlier this morning. So typically we try to find out sooner, and we know sooner ahead of time so we can make plans and not have applicants come all the way downtown and you know, pay for parking and all that. But this item will be on the September 21st DRC agenda for formal consideration.
Does this put the applicant behind in the TRC process?
It puts them behind about a month, assuming approval at each step.
Do we have the ability to call a special DRC meeting?
We do. We could call one perhaps in a couple of weeks. We still have to follow the noticing guidelines, so we can't call one for like tomorrow or anything, obviously. But if we did it about 2 weeks out, we could consider that.
We could do that online as well.
We can technically schedule special meetings for either online or in person. We do have a choice on that.
Yeah.
I know our regularly scheduled meetings are in person.
Yep.
I think that's what we voted on doing.
Correct.
I think that's probably the best policy is to try to hold meetings in person. But I know we've done a special virtual meeting in the past for an informal review. I don't see why I couldn't do it for a formal review.
Yeah, so I think I see where you're going with this, Brian, given the potential situation this is putting the developer and design team. I'd be all for like an interim online meeting. And so I think that's something we need to think about.
Okay.
Would the applicant like to respond to that line of
Thank
discussion?
you. That was going to be, John Knorr with Roberts and Stevens on behalf of the applicant. That was going to be our request, is that you try and schedule a special meeting between now and your next regular scheduled meeting. Our only request is make sure that it's in a format that could legally do a formal review of the project, not just another informal one. No, never a waste of time. We always learn something from each of these, and we are happy to do the informal process today to further gather y'all's feedback who were able to make it today. And I think we've got part of our development team drove 3 hours today, some are 2 and are parking right now, and so we appreciate any accommodation y'all can make on a special meeting.
Our apologies for that.
Yeah.
The
It happens, people get sick, it's okay.
process is not supposed to punish you, so our apologies.
Sorry to interrupt, but should we approve the minutes from?
We can't.
We
Can't technically.
Because we don't have a quorum. Okay, that's right. All right.
So, I mean, we could technically schedule a meeting, as long as you have a 2-week, it gets a little tough because we'd have to either, the notice of meeting in the newspaper is usually due about 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday, so, and the Citizen Times is pretty strict about when we can submit those, so I don't know if we can. Yeah, okay. Okay. Go with the lead time. So those things are always kind of fluid. We could try to schedule one for a meeting for either the 31st, which is in 2 weeks, and shoot for that, and if we can't get the noticing out in time, we can move it another week. If we move it another week, we're going to be past the September 6th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting anyway, so it's going to, all intents and purposes, not make that much of a difference,
Okay.
because we're going to have to go to Planning and Zoning at some point anyway.
Yeah, if at all possible, try to get that 30th or 31st or somewhere in that neighborhood.
So if we can arrange a special meeting on either September 30th or September 31st, that would be, I'm in August, I'm sorry. I'm already, summer's already over in my mind.
And we can't vote on that, but if you, I think the 4 members that are here are in agreement if we can get 1 or 2 more to.
That work for you, Michael?
What was the
30th
date?
or the 31st of August?
Yes.
The 31st I can definitely do.
Okay. So for the,
If we just get 1 more person, we can
Yep.
have a quorum and we can review this thing.
so we'll, yeah,
Looking like 31st could work.
Okay.
Just let us.
okay. Let's shoot
Thank
for the
you.
31st, that's in 2 weeks. If we can,
And an online would be amazing.
Okay.
If that will work, to
Mhm.
legally do
yeah, I think that'd be fine. It's, since this is not a quasi judicial board, we don't necessarily have to hold meetings in person to do official business. So I think with the online option, I can confirm that as well. I can make sure we have enough time to notice in the newspaper the special meeting. And if all those things, and we can get at least a couple more folks here to attend that 31st meeting, then we can certainly move forward with that. So I'll keep you all posted. So, yeah, we can't officially continue it to that meeting date, so we'll just renotice everything and repost signs to that effect, and that'll take care of those requirements. So we'll just, we'll schedule it and post it and
But y'all picked a
notify.
great day to visit Asheville. It feels great outside. So
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
So sorry. Okay.
So are we still doing a presentation or?
I think maybe just a brief one, what do you think, Clay? Okay, so Clay will give a brief presentation, and then we can have an informal review
No
for as
chocolate.
long as we feel is helpful, and then call it a day from there.
Chair, committee members, I changed everything except the fact that this is now a informal review on August 17th. I truncated this presentation just so that we could get directly to the applicant team who you've already had a robust discussion during the informal process. Just to reorient everybody, this is the site on the left, the Sycamore Temple behind Jan Davis Tire, adjacent to A-Hope, and what, as far as I can tell, is a single-family home, maybe there. And then to the north of that is the Tribute Hope Lodging and mixed-use development, and the open dirt, because this aerial isn't updated, is the Embassy Suites. So a lot of activity on Ann and Carter Streets. This is the closest one to Patton Ave, down there in the south, and you can see the applicant has provided a rendering of the first floor kind of laid over the property. This was the original submission showing the parking on the left and the subterranean floors, ground level at the Carter Street with the entrance. All I'm highlighting today for our discussion to kind of jumpstart it, I think, are the major changes that I've detected based on your informal review and the applicant's work. So this is kind of like, an optometrist visit, you got this is what was submitted, and then this is the update. And you can see a lot of changes in the Carter Street frontage. The entrance is pulled back. There's a lot of work done adjacent to the streetscape as well as on the actual streetscape, changes in the treatment of the sidewalks. Same on the back on Ann Street. You can see that the separate leasable space is shown as potentially being 2 units instead of 1, which, there's no requirement that it be 2 units, but whatever is best for the applicant and the use on the site. The additional changes in the landscaping a little bit, but that front portion on Carter Street is where you see a lot of significant changes, even internal in the entry area. There's some treatment on and additional landscaping within that drive aisle as you come into the site. This is it in a close-up. So the original application on the left, changes on the right. Some building elements that were raised by this commission in the informal. I've highlighted the major ones. I'm sure you're going to talk about a lot more, but just to give you visual reference, the original application rendering on the left, and then on the right, the 3 major points where changes are readily apparent. all along Ann Street, much different treatment of that separate retail area, a little bit on that, that kind of wall behind it. Up on the top floor, you see a lot more glazing along that north-facing kind of portion of the tower. And then a lot more treatment also as you get to the top floor in the west-facing portion of the L shape of the building. And then here, again, a comparison view of the original application on Carter Street, and then the new rendering showing that additional treatment along the streetscape, some building changes in colors and materials that you reviewed, as well on both the detail and the close-up. And then context renderings were provided. And so here you see the proximity of the AHOPE facility in the rear of Jan Davis Tire on the left. So this is Ann Street looking north, or Ann Street looking south and Carter Street looking north. And that's really, I think, all I should be saying, and let you engage in a conversation with the applicants, unless you have any questions for me.
I think that's good. Thank you, Clay.
You're welcome. So I have both the site plans and the architecturals up if you want to go back and forth. And I'll just close my presentation since it's useless at this point.
Would the applicant like to step up? Thanks. Hi.
Hi. I guess he kind of covered it. I made like a bulleted list of all the changes that we made in reference to get all of your comments last time. And he kind of.
Can you state your name?
Oh, I'm
for us?
Whitney.
Okay,
Whitney Van Houten.
thank you.
With LDA. Yep.
You say Whitney?
Whitney. Yep. Sorry. So he kind of hit all of them. One thing, small change, is we kind of added a little bit of like a industrial flair to the windows. We have like that gridded, a smaller mullion look. It's industrial, but I think it'll look really refined in there. So I think that was a little touch that wasn't picked up there. And also the roof. I know we talked about kind of how can we articulate the roof a little last time. So it kind of flares towards both of the terraces. You can see that a little bit more on the elevations, maybe not in the renderings as much. Let's see if I can control
Very
this.
subtle butterfly.
Yeah. And let me get down here. Okay. Yeah. So you can see it kind of on this one a little bit. And that flares to either side to add a little articulation to the massing. But other than that, everything that he covered, I think, is exactly it. We were really excited about that relief we were able to give to Carter Street and kind of pulling that back and opening that up. I thought that that was really nice. And then on the first floor plan, going into kind of the parking, we thought it was really nice. I mean, it's like we kind of ironed out some of like the functionality of how the cars were moving through that space. Before, we weren't really kind of navigating them around properly. I think they were gonna have to do like some wild turns if there were two people in there at once or whatever. So we worked through that, and we worked through that with our structural team too to make sure nothing would get in the way there. And there is an opening. I know it looks a little silly to have this tree in the center here, but we do have this void in between our parking and our actual overhang of the entryway there. And we thought it might be a nice place. You get sunlight in there and stuff. So we thought it might be an option to have some type of vegetation kind of more internal to the site. So that's what that's showing. But other than that, those are the main massing moves that he mentioned. If you have any questions.
You also revised, so yeah, Ann Street got revised a good bit. It looks like you did quite a bit on the top. I'm looking at that approach on Ann Street, on the piece that juts out to the north. You changed that whole top piece and put the glass on. And I could see in the elevations, the windows are in that little inset notch. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
You mean above the retail?
No, it's in the blank phase. It's the bottom image of A202, left side of that image.
Yes,
yeah.
also in there. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I saw them in the elevation. I was trying to find them in the 3D. I kept wanting to zoom and rotate.
Move around
It
our
wasn't
Revit
working.
model, yeah.
I keep like doing
Yeah.
things and it's not working.
Okay, so just a quick note, just on the enhancements that you've done on the site. We really appreciate it, especially the tree upsizing and the thought of pulling the paving into the pavers into the sidewalk. And then I think the boulder garden is a clever idea that could be really, really nice with native boulders and not having to deal with some of the issues that we know are going to be there. So we appreciate all those items and the attention to detail on that. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is that a green, the intention of some of those planners, is that like a green wall on a screen? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so if I go to the, sorry, it's the opposite, okay. So on the first floor here, can you see my cursor when yeah, okay. These spots here that are kind of vertical, those kind of like will frame out the entryway or the entrance into the building, and those I'm imagining are like built-in planters that kind of wrap around the columns that need to be there, and you be able to have like some type of vertical growing vine, something like that, add some greenery. And that
trumpet honeysuckle or something like that.
Sorry?
You've got trumpet honeysuckle or something like that
Yeah.
called out, okay.
And that also I'm trying to have on the 6th floor terrace to kind of like connect those two spots. A lot of the like feature language or feature materials or moves we're making kind of happen at that entry level and then up at the terraces. So on the 6th floor, oh, sorry about that. So here, in this zone right here, I kind of have that same expression just enlarged. And we have different programmatic zones up there, some early schematics with ID. So it might be nice to break up the space there. So similar green wall intention.
We have some comments from Ricardo, who's not here today, but I'd just
Okay.
like to read them. He wanted to point out that the request for trees and textures to be shown more accurately was addressed, and the requested context views were provided. So thank you for that. He's also pointing out that the added pavers allow the public space to engage the building more at both entrances, which is a positive thing. He agrees with the note in the staff report regarding bike racks. And he also sees a bench shown at the main entrance but not noted, recommended that this is noted in the drawings. He noticed that they addressed Brian's comment about the perimeter band. It looks composed and more deliberate. However, it's now extending well above the low volume on Ann Street, which is now dark. Both of these moves make the volume look tacked on, unless there's a practical reason for the white wall to be that high for screening or fall protection. He suggests lowering the typical height and allowing it to pop or step up at the front to help mark the entrance, and reconsider the color of the volume to help the masking. Is that clear?
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to
Let me look at the picture.
Okay.
No, I think I follow. I just want to look at it at the same time. Okay, so he's talking about this, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
So that wall, there is not a like functional reason for it to stay that high. Aesthetically, it on the front is what kind of
That's what sets the datum.
because it works with the front of the building. And the heights of like the first floor and things like that. And when you get to the back, it does look taller because of the topography. But we can look at some options, but that is what's pulling it right now, is because those two kind of like planes are kind of bookending the two L's of the building. So, and I also might be an angle thing.
I think if I could tag on, there's one of the images, and it just, it's the Carter Street, North Ann Street in context on A203. I know Ricardo by now. So that bottom right image that you're doing, can you zoom in on that? There's
I can
something
try.
funky going on as that thing turns the corner, that big wall, so there's nothing
Yeah.
false front about this building, but that little, where that little corner sticks up and that wall just looks like it kind of disappears. Like, it just looks like there's no function to it there.
Are we looking at this wall? Or
The one
this-
right there?
Yeah, right there, right there. So there's something odd going on there where it's like that wall's taking away from, so first of all, yes, this is, I like this very much. This is a great building. And I like the move you've made here. And so now I'm just like nitpicking.
Go for it.
Be real clear. Okay, so like the moves you've made on Ann Street, that's a nice piece, but then this piece looks like it's supposed to be something special because it's taller than it, and it's, and then this is recessed, but then I know that there's nothing there, that's not where people are supposed to go, and then it like disappears, it wraps around the corner and there's nothing.
Yeah.
That little piece in context just needs to be addressed. That makes sense.
We'll look at it. There's parking at the level. So there's a 10-foot up, there's a upper level of parking. So like, there's actually a guardrail that you can't see because it's just cable right here that
Okay.
goes to this line about here, that middle band.
Okay.
And that's where the guardrail will connect
Tie
from one
into.
to the other. So like,
Yeah,
I don't have a good view.
It provides some screening, Matt Gower with ODA, it provides some screening to the parking, I guess, but maybe there's.
Yeah, so there will be
If-
cars.
If you
Yeah.
go to A301, I
Mhm.
can see it in 3D better.
Okay.
And you're looking like back down onto that piece.
201? Wait,
A301, yeah, keep scrolling up, the
30.
other way. 30, it's in the, it's 3 South Shore Ann Street section at Hotel. It's on the A301, the building sections. Scroll back up in this document, keep going.
There.
Right there.
sorry.
One more, just up right, the 3D on
Oh,
the right.
I'm so sorry.
You see
Yeah,
that? You see-
exactly. Okay.
Okay, so you can see that little wing wall, how it kind of turns
Mm-hmm.
but stops. And in 3 dimensions, you can see that it just kind of turns and stops. And it looks like it should be more special than it is. I'm
Okay.
just saying that like maybe it keeps on returning or something happens.
I wonder if it could get more porous, like maybe you could have the brick open, like
Mhm.
some bricks removed to make it more of like just an
Or
idea.
you reintroduce that screen element that you've got the trellis on in the front. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't
We've
understand
been
why it's so
talking
tall.
about
Why
that.
is it so tall, though? It looks like it's 8 to 10 feet over the parking deck, taller.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. The reason that it's tall on that side is because the datum was started on the front and I didn't bring it down. I wanted to maintain it.
But it's
As-
disconnected.
Yeah, it is
If you go around the
disconnected.
south side of the building, there's a break.
I agree.
So the height of the wall on Ann Street isn't connected to the height of the wall on Carter Street.
I guess the design intent was like when you're up there and they're both on the sides of you, they look like they're from the same place. But we have been talking about that internally as well, the actual height of it because of like the roof in that area and the way that the massing
ties in.
like all comes together at that one spot. So we've been looking at it too. I don't think that it'll like break the project to make it shorter. So
Or-
we're
or
fine
change-
looking at it, but that
or
was
change
the
it.
intention.
Change it up. I
Yeah.
think it can change up, because like,
Yeah.
even where it dies into the building, it doesn't die into the building at a place that makes sense to me. So, again, I'm nitpicking y'all, so,
What was the comment on materials?
I thought Ricardo liked them.
At the end of this, are you talking about another?
one of the last statements on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't get through all of them because we stopped at that one, so let me keep going.
I'm sorry.
He also mentioned that he thinks the change in the roof helps distinguish the project a little more from the Tribute Hotel up the street. I definitely agree with that. And he says, to my eye, the Ann Street side is more compelling because there's more contrast between the parts of the composition.
Mm.
But he said this a value judgment. He said the same thing about the tribute. And then lastly, he appreciates that the architect once again demonstrated willingness and ability to accept constructive criticism and turn it into successful design decisions. The landscape plan is more detailed, but otherwise limited site information provided should suggest there's been no change to the original stormwater management strategies, which is disappointing. I'm not sure about the material comment that you have a question about, but if you want to take these
Yeah.
comments, that might be helpful. And I do just have one comment about the EFS that you're using. I want to make 2 points. I wonder if there's a way to make, I think the gray, the darker gray on Carter Street is looking really nice. I just wonder if there's a way to make the white look a little less institutional. Maybe more detailing. I think the AC hotel here, I don't particularly like EFS, but I think that they did a really good job detailing, like using EFS and making it a little more interesting, and using color with EFS. And also I wanted to point out that that building, when it was being constructed, and all buildings that are built with EFS have this, little white.
Dandruff
Yeah.
all over downtown.
And it's really toxic. And if there's any way during construction to keep it out of the water flow.
Oh.
Or use extruded polystyrene
Yeah.
instead of.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Didn't we address that last year?
There's an ordinance that they're not supposed to use either the expanded, right?
I think our details.
I know
Wasn't it
there's
something
an
about
ordinance.
covering, like, doing a, like a fabric covering across the front of the building,
that what-
connected to the
Now that you say
scaffolding?
that, now that you say that, there
I
might be.
remember Sage Turner mentioning that,
Okay.
but I know that, like, the Restoration Hotel, they had guys with vacuum cleaners out there,
Nice.
and it was an endless battle. The wind was blowing, and it was
Yeah.
just everywhere.
Yeah, just if that could be taken note of. And if there is if we do have a requirement, we can share that with you all.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a bunch. I didn't realize I'd be the outlier on this, and I was very supportive of the last project. I got a lot of issues with this. Some of them are interpretations of the guidelines. So the guidelines generally are encouraging an urban building in the CBD. On Carter Street, none of the building meet the front property line. In fact, much of it's set back. So can you help me understand the intention of the guidelines are to push the buildings and create a street wall that is articulated and activated. But there's a couple layers to this question. One, 50% of the frontage on Carter Street is about the car. Between the width of the driveway, the legs of the building on the north end that are holding up a building over a turnaround, and the fact that none of the street level it's an employee lounge. It's not an urban building, in my opinion. It's kind of walking the line between, it kind of would fit on Tunnel Road or something. It feels like it's not meeting the guidelines in terms of frontage, right?
Well, yeah, so a few things. I guess the first thing about the setback,
Well, let's talk about the step back later, just
Or
the footprint,
the set- yeah,
of
like
the
where the
street
siding is.
wall.
So, I mean, in that case, where the building begins, if it does not technically have to be on the property
No,
line.
I'm not on the property line,
Yeah.
but there is some language, I couldn't find it.
Mhm.
Do you know the language that says, I think 80% of the building has to,
So that's, if you're talking about 80%, there's a provision that if you're on a key pedestrian street, the building coverage has to be along 80% of the frontage. I think this building would meet that, but it doesn't apply because it's not a key pedestrian street technically. So I think they're.
so you would say 80% of the building comes out to the street?
Or that you have to have building along 80% of the property line is one of the requirements for a key pedestrian street. But,
Yeah, none of this is.
well, it doesn't apply here, that requirement doesn't apply.
So once you get away from a key pedestrian street, there's no language requiring a street wall coming out to the sidewalk?
There is, but it's not phrased in the same way.
You're talking about the build to line in the design guidelines?
Yeah, you're talking about where the building begins in reference to the sidewalk and the property line?
Well, I'm thinking, I'm going way back. There were
Yep.
several projects 15 years ago
Yep.
where they set them back, and we were telling them to pull them forward.
Right.
And in my opinion, I heard one comment that that little, on the northeast corner, that little kind of boulder scramble,
Mhm.
to me, that's not an urban,
Mhm.
that's not a downtown architectural design response, is to line either side of a very wide vehicular access with, filler.
Yep.
So I thought the width of a driveway was 20 foot. Is it 24 foot, Max?
24.
It's 24.
I can't see off the top of my head, but
I'm
I'll
pretty
defer
sure
to my
minimum 24.
design colleagues
the-
know.
in the
have
guidelines.
a better idea.
Maximum. Why 20? Why do you need 24 though?
It's 24 max.
Why do you need 24?
I'm Tony Hauser with WSP. 12-foot driving lane is pretty standard. You could go less, potentially. In this case, where we're coming off of a very narrow street, and we don't have radiused curb returns, we basically have transitions from the walk down to the driveway. That facilitates cars getting in and out of that driveway.
Well, you see where I'm going with this? It seems like you're walking down Carter Street. This building is all about the car, and your engagement. The street level spaces are kind of throwaway. It's an employee lounge. There's no life there. Where the front door is, it's set back way off the street. So it just doesn't feel like an urban building to me. And so one is like, doesn't meet the guidelines. And I thought the guidelines would kind of force more of the building to come out to the sidewalk. And I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't. So.
Well, so two things. The front setback requirement that you're talking about, street orientation and lot layout, page 4 of the downtown design guidelines. 0 front setback from the right-of-way line is observed, and then it goes through 4 options. Option 4, a greater setback is determined as part of the design review process. So part of what we've been responding to on this particular project is that the sidewalks in this area are incredibly narrow. And the applicant has been responding to the sidewalk widths kind of as requested by staff, and then kind of keying off of those. And then we've been going off of that basis. So essentially, if you look at where the lot line is to the curb, it's what, Tony, like 4 feet? The lot line to the curb, back of curb or something like that. It's just really close to the curb. And in order to get the kind of street trees and sidewalks and things like that that we all wanted as other design goals for this area, the applicant has kind of pulled that stuff back. That was done early in the design process, honestly, before they even came to us, as things that, transportation, public works, everybody else is looking at. So that's where those decisions came from.
Well, I understand we want a deep sidewalk, but we have potentially a 16-foot deep planting area between the back edge of the sidewalk and the building structure at the north end of the building.
At the north end, yeah.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of issues in that. One, it seems to be skewed way towards people arriving by a car, disappearing into the building and going upstairs. And it doesn't feel like it is an urban building to me. I mean, it's urban in that it's very tall and very compact. And then going to the Ann Street side, I understand that, the guidelines want a street level activated, maybe retail, and you provided that, but have we seen other projects where it's completely disconnected. That space is like separated by a parking garage. And do we have a completed example of how that actually functions? I know there's one under construction now on French Broad. They're just put the steel up now. I'm kind of curious how that works out. But I'm really worried that this is just a dead throwaway space on Ann Street that has no relationship to anything else.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to meet, that's one way that they're meeting the requirement that half of the frontage has to be a separate occupiable use, not associated with the hotel. So that's, I mean, that's probably why that's there, to be honest. And I think the fact that it's kind of buffered between the parking lot and the hotel is just the most logical way to design that.
It's more beef about like
Yeah.
what the guidelines say,
Sure.
and then there's responses we get to it. I
Yeah.
don't know that the guidelines were intended to create this.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, you have the overlapping, you have the guidelines, you have the CBD zoning, and you have the hotel overlay zoning. So this is actually a requirement in the hotel overlay. So how do all those pieces fit together? They can be a little bit either contradictory or, I mean, it's fair to question, you know, we can state that, yes, since you can aggregate the two sides of the building, the requirement can be aggregated between two sides. So if you can put it all on Ann Street, this separate occupiable storefront area. You don't have to have it on Carter Street, so it does meet the requirement. And I think it's fair to critique whether that's a good solution or not.
Well, Ryan, you may want to fold that into your guidelines discussion. Like, if we're going to force developers to create this, like, let's make viable, you know.
How big are those two spaces? How many
Square
feet?
footage, I don't think I,
Like it's
think I can-
17'4" on one, or about 18 feet by,
yeah, it meets like the average mean of 15, that's all I know.
Is it close to 1,500-ish?
Oh, like square footage?
Yeah,
I think that I took the square footages off of this.
as you should.
Thought it was just, yeah. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I'm just curious, because
Might be on an old.
It's about 17 by 18 or 17 by maybe 7.
it's like 800
No, is
square
that?
feet.
I'm not adding it together, sorry. 30 plus, maybe it's like 50 times 15 or 16, maybe it's 800, maybe the north one is 800.
We'll go with it.
Yeah. So maybe the northern one is 800 square
I mean,
feet.
it's possible. I mean, it took a while, but the backside of the loft on the corner there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
tea shop,
Yeah,
that filled in. I mean, it's kind of the same space.
You'll have another space
And
at
it's
the
a
other
nice-
proposed
it's
hotel
works,
perhaps that has the similar,
But it's
Yeah.
on a prime location.
The one, but the
and
one,
it has apartments above.
Yes, and, anyways, that's an aside. Some other comments are, I mean, you guys are the same team that designed the project just to the north of this. And it's odd that there's no evidence of that project in this application. I mean, you know what the footprint is to the north of this, and there's actually a little jog where they kind of stitch together. And I understand that maybe separate LLCs or whatever, but there's an opportunity to like, it looks like you don't, when I look at these drawings, it looks like, well, gee, we don't know what's gonna happen to the north of this project, so we're gonna just play it safe.
there's a parcel between the two. isn't
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also had some guidance in my notes from last
But
time
is it
they
owned
were
by
too
some-
reminiscent of it.
Yeah.
Is that parcel owned by somebody else?
Yeah.
There's a inner,
Small house and then,
Homer Bound.
AHOP itself is in between them.
Well, on Carter Street too?
there's a house there.
Okay. Speaking of that, on the main level plan, there's a little transformer courtyard. And it creates this kind of trapezoidal piece. You can kind of, if you scroll that
Oh, sorry.
down a little bit, that where there's a tree shown there, it seems like it's going to be a problem spot there. And maybe you just push that transformer
Mhm.
courtyard wall all the way as close to the property line as you can get it. And just, it seems like bad things can happen in that little spot there.
What are you referencing?
And,
I don't,
and by the way, there are trees shown on the architecture that are not shown on. No, the tree is not shown on the landscape plan. So there are some trees shown on this drawing that are not shown on the landscape plan, and they're not tabulated. So I'm guessing they're not part of the plan, that you guys stuck them in there, you know, to populate the site plan, but they're
I
not.
thought I had coordinated, but maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional.
That may have been a coordination problem on my part. I just rode across the country on my bicycle and just got back
I caught
recently,
it.
so that, I apologize if that was a coordination issue on my part. But we would lose that tree in that corner if we were to do that.
Yeah, but between grading, like you don't know what's gonna, I don't know, I just wonder if you can, between grading and footings and what happens next door, if you're ever gonna get a tree to live there anyways.
We
Well,
also can make the transformer space smaller, like what I have hatched around that is the most that's
requirement.
needed. I just gave wiggle room because
You
it
never know.
always can be a problem.
Yeah.
But we're able to pull off of it actually to allow for trees, if that's what we want. So it can go either way.
I really appreciate your comments. They're really constructive, and I certainly see the potential nefarious nature of that space, and so we'll look at that a little bit more. But we'd hate to lose, more trees, but.
Well, either like do all the work to make it a great place to plant a tree, or if you can't, if you just can't control it, then just punt and
Build it, or pave it or something.
I would think so.
Yeah. So to get back to the question you asked about the front setback on Carter Street, the hotel overlay references CBD zoning as far as setbacks go, and the setbacks, minimum setback in CBD is 0. Maximum, I think, is 50 for some uses, but 20 for other uses unless you create a plaza. That is in the front of the building. And so
A
that's,
plaza?
that's courtyard, plaza, that sort of thing. And so that was the idea here, was to create that useful space out in front of the main entrance of the building. And also create that opportunity for additional plant material, because within the 10-foot sidewalk area that's standard through downtown, there just simply isn't additional planting in those. It's typically 10 foot of sidewalk and tree grades. But this offers that opportunity. At other locations downtown, for instance, at Foundry, which Mr. Johnson brought up about the last project, there was a 5-foot setback to create that planting space and soften that experience for pedestrians. And so that's sort of a decision that's made by the architecture, whether or not that space is there. So.
Yeah, I got a big beef with the Cambria Hotel. The way the vehicular entrance dominates the digestion of that building,
That's the one on Biltmore Avenue?
across from the Grove Arcade.
But they don't have
Oh.
a plaza like this, right?
What I'm saying is that the whole experience is from the car, and like, to go to the Cambria, you have to walk in, you have to navigate around the cars to get to the front door, and this isn't quite as bad, but it just feels like, I don't know, I've said my piece about that. I wish it would feel more urban, and I understand where it's not urban, you're trying to fill it in with landscaping and stuff, but,
Well, again, the specific comment you made about the driveway width, I would not see a problem with that. You know where I fall on cars, man. I ride my bike most everywhere I go. But at any rate, if we reduce that driveway width by 2 or 4 feet to 20 feet, it still accommodates those cars turning in and out, but what it does is it slows down those vehicles. So that's certainly something we can look at.
slows them down in a good way.
Absolutely, yeah. So they can't get in and out as quickly. They have to slow down because they're afraid they might be, running into another car coming in or out.
Yeah, I mean the Indigo, it's really super tight, and
Oh, yeah.
it works. It's really compact and it feels very urban. So
Thank
I'd say take a look at that.
Come on,
That being said, it does slow down cars on Haywood Street as they turn into that entrance. again, I don't particularly care
On
about that
Carter Street.
consequence.
Yeah.
I appreciate people driving slow in downtown or anywhere for that matter, but.
Well, my first thought was, it looks like the grades on Ann Street and Carter Street are only off by about 5 feet. You could actually drive the car through. You could enter on Carter and exit on Ann. That would obviously change your whole approach to dumpsters and stuff like that, which would allow that whole throat on Carter to tighten up, so you have one lane entrance. But unfortunately, you're in and out there, which then I'd say 50% of the frontage is all about the car, which, I mean, we're on the same page in
Yeah.
terms about how we're designing our landscape to be experienced from the car.
Yeah.
So those are my comments about that. And I wish, I understand the whole jump lobby, interesting idea. It'd be cool to arrive to Asheville, end up on the roof, and like that's your first experience, is like appreciating it from up there, but it also kind of kills the street when you do that. And you know, you've got an employee lounge there, so whatever you can do to make the street level activated, so there's energy on the street. So let's talk about step back. Will and I were talking about that earlier. In the guidelines, it talks about a street level portion of the building, and then it steps back 10 foot. And so here's an interpretation question. So again, at the same problematic northeast corner of the building, you kind of have like a roof deck that comes out towards the street that creates the 10-foot step back. So the 10-foot step back isn't really stepping back.
Oh my God.
The building isn't stepping back because the building is actually recessed. Like if you zoom in on the main approach on Carter Street coming from Haywood Street, and then kind of zoom in on that parapet there. Yeah. So the building isn't really stepping back. It's more so that you're pushing a roof out, right?
I mean, I can definitely see your point in that regard. I know part of the building to the left of the image looks like occupiable space. Other parts are more of an overhang. This might be one of those things where it technically meets the requirement, but whether it looks tacked on or a little bit designed backwards in that regard is perhaps a fair question.
I mean, it seems kind of awkward that you're putting, at one point you're trying to landscape it, soften it up, and the other, you're putting a roof over it, so you can't really put trees there. So to me, it's kind of struggling as to what's happening there. Is it?
Covered entry, don't wait for an Uber.
Yeah, and you're not showing it being like, you know, like outdoor dining or anything where it wants a roof. So it seems like, you know, as a designer, we play these games all the time. You're pushing a roof out to create your step back. So,
So my actual, the design of the massing was 10 foot back is this front plane, the white that you see. It's not that legible in this visual, I guess, but that plane is at the setback, and then the step back is the plane behind it. Like, so the massing above is the step back, and the plane in front is the setback. So the massing that's within, like where the lobby is, I'm not referencing as either of those kind of datums, vertical datums, I guess.
I think,
Is that?
well, just,
yeah, I think what you're saying is the interior space should be closer to the street to create a street wall.
yeah, well, there should be interior space there. I think
Right,
the
but-
way the guidelines were written was that,
It's, I
again,
think-
going back to my earlier comments, that at the street level, the building comes out and forms a street wall, and then it steps back. Here, it's kind of not coming out to meet the street, so there's really not a step back.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it kind of goes back to that, what you acknowledged, you know, the concept of sort of carving that portion away to create the landscaping in front. I think, we were kind of trying to find a balance between softening that edge and creating some landscaping, but still having a mass on a fairly narrow frontage to meet all the massing and setback requirements.
Well, just looking at that view, there's that white wall that comes out, and the only reason it's there is to hold the step back line. It seems like, I don't know, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's.
Seems kind of awkward, like, what are we trying to do here? You're trying to meet the guidelines are trying to create something, and like.
I don't think they guided me like that much. The mass, like that line doesn't align with the setback. It is at its own angle, it's pulled the other way, so it's not like I threw the wall there to create that wall. So I don't think that the guidelines really were in charge of the massing as much as it sounds like it was reactionary, but.
Well, I'd almost rather see that it's not a balcony, that tray, I assume there's 2 hotel rooms, maybe 4 hotel rooms that look out onto that space. So it's kind of dead space. It would be nice if that whole piece came farther out to the street and then you had something happening on top of that. So, anyways. What about it? So I kind of like the roof line. The view standing on Patton looking north is pretty cool. Can you zoom back out? I think this northern wing that we're talking about kind of looks like it wants to fit into the roof line better. It's almost like 2 buildings, like.
Use 2 fingers to scroll up and down.
Which one are you wanting to see?
Go back up a little bit. So the left-hand image there.
It's okay. So come back.
What'd I do? Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a butterfly roof, and I think it works from Patton, and it works coming up Carter from Patton. And then as you get in front of the building and you're seeing the northeast corner of the building, that piece doesn't seem like it's like that image to the left of your logo. I don't know, it's up on legs, sitting on top of cars. There's no roof overhang there. I would suggest maybe you study how that piece that sticks north can meet the rest of the building better. Because I think the southeast and the southwest and the south are all good. It just, that piece that sits on top of the cars seems kind of awkward.
If you look at Michael, the main approach on Carter Street coming from Patton Avenue on that same sheet A202, it looks like there's like a wall or something between those 2 where the 2 roof lines are meeting. Yeah, that one on the upper left, and then right in the middle where the butterfly roof comes in and the other roof comes in. I think that's what you're talking about, is that little junction right there between the 2 roof lines.
Yeah.
And then there's a wall coming out. It just looks a little like, okay, does that one supposed to turn and tuck underneath? Is it,
It's not
there's something
totally
going on.
resolved.
It does look like 2 buildings, and then it just like, well, we don't really know what to do.
Why not just continue the roof line that's on the southeast corner, just continue it all the way across? So anyways, that's very subjective. So the views looking down don't show any rooftop mechanicals? You're showing a very clean roof line. Are you not having anything on the roof?
We definitely will.
This is good.
We haven't gotten
Turn
our
around.
MEP involved or anything yet. We don't have an idea of what that is yet, so.
There's
it's
I
not-
think there's a portion carved out on the high roof that. doesn't
Yeah, I guess I can,
Show in the rendering.
Um,
I'm not sure.
there's a zone, let's see.
Or a
So
lot,
like,
I think.
this is the zone, kind of probably where it will be.
What sheet are you looking at?
We can't see what you're showing.
Oh,
Well, we can. Just look back here.
Got it.
Everybody turn around and crane your neck really good.
Okay.
There you go.
so this is like the lower area in between here,
That's so far away.
but that's, we don't have mechanical like
15
released
over
yet,
beside
so
that.
we aren't showing anything, but that's flat roof.
Well, you have a slope, that, the butterfly roof has slope, so if you were to put them up there,
It's not, this part is not sloped, the part that I was
yeah,
pointing at.
to me, that looks way too small to handle all your mechanicals, so, I mean, it's starting off, 2/3 of the building have a kind of a cool roof line, and I like the way the stair towers kind of like hold that, and the big cantilever, the big overhang on Carter Street. But again, that junction that you can see in that isometric there between that kind of orphan roof line, and then how do you keep that roof line with your mechanicals?
It might be nice to show us the mechanicals next time, if possible.
What's the requirement on those? Aren't those supposed to be screened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tends to end up being a design element
Right.
as well.
There's also opportunity if we were to be able to like carve it out in the center of the two wings so that you don't actually like see it on the elevation, it's at the low point. It like is like sunken at the low point of it. You guys know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That would
So
be ideal.
that, something like that could happen in the center of the 6th floor. I think the intention of the spread is so that like in the terrace, kind of more public areas, we have that high roof. So, and the low point is already giving a 16-foot height at the 6th floor. So I think I can look at also kind of like carving it out in the center of that so the elevations remain, et cetera.
Mhm.
Like what sheet would that offset roof, I'm trying to figure out how big it is, where you were saying the mechanicals would go, would that show up on one of your floor plans?
I did not do a roof plan for this middle.
Okay. And then the drive-in, there's that island, you talked about the tree, how about that could be kind of a cool thing. Took me a while to figure out that there's a parking deck over part of that L shape, and then there's a little hole there, which brings light in, I think would be cool. The tree in your plan doesn't show up on the landscape architect's drawing, so if it's going to be a defining feature, make sure it gets integrated into the other design documents. And I think it's really needed because, again, the width of, you're on Carter Street, the building is dominated by this driveway and this turnaround under the building, and you've got all the support stuff where it would be great if it was fully activated.
Yeah.
But you are looking through and seeing the parking deck, so having
Yeah.
some landscaping, kind of with some sun hitting it, can be kind of cool, and probably a nice visual relief to soften up. I mean, just, yeah, on that plan, just imagine standing where the word street is on Carter Street and just, you're seeing nothing but surface paving. So I'd say, man, play up that old oasis of landscaping there. And maybe the landscape architect's drawings show the paving materials, but maybe you use modular paving in that whole area. So you're like, it's not like making such a distinction between cars and people that maybe the cars are kind of driving onto a court, a paved area,
Feels more like Wall Street or something.
yeah.
You're saying even in the drive areas?
Yeah, I thought that was the intent, right? It was all the same material.
Well, the way we're showing it
Or
right now
similar
is,
material, but maybe a distinction in color or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what we-
Well, it's not rendered that way, so.
yeah, the pedestrian
Yeah,
areas,
right.
yeah, the pedestrian areas are rendered differently than the drive areas. You're saying even in the drive areas, just make that continuous?
Yeah, make it feel like you're excusing yourself to bring your car there. You know, just do your business and get out of there, because that's not just for cars. I'm just thinking of ways that we can soften up that space, because to me, it dominates the building too much. So soften it up with like pedestrian type paving, not vehicular type paving. benches, landscaping, anything you can do to make it not all about the car. And I think those are all my comments. And following up on that, this is continuing on Brian's comment, like this plan shows where that kind of parapet on Ann Street that we were talking about, it does a little 30-degree bevel next to the dumpster corral.
Yeah, that I have to
in
resolve a
plan.
little more.
Are you seeing that, Brian? So see the dumpster corral on the northwest corner? So that bold little column there, that's holding the end of that kind of parapet thingy. So if it were to turn, it wouldn't land on the ground because it would get the driveway. So if it turned, it would have to span over the driveway. So it is, the footprint is creating, the wall just kind of ends there because you can't turn the corner on the ground. So you either turn the corner above the parking deck or some other thing. And I will say the optics of putting the dumpsters next to AHOP, I understand they have to go somewhere, but like that's, I wish there was a way that we could, and I wish I knew more about how the trucks come and empty those bins, like.
Did they come up?
Yeah, if they're gonna get wheeled out to the street, can we tighten up that driveway? Right now, the driveway to get to the refuse is pretty wide. And it kind of like kills that
That's what was required,
northwest
right?
corner.
I think that's what was required.
This is something that will require modification for transportation because of the angle. I think we talked about it, or you may have talked about it actually I think Brian mentioned it at the previous project meeting, development meeting, about the possibility of making those roads one way each way. And that actually came up at the neighborhood meeting for Tribute. And I gave that to transportation. I said, this doesn't really apply to this development, but it was suggested that these be made one way each way. And so our assumption here is that if that ever happens, this is the direction. That is that North Ann Street will go north, plan view here. I think it's actually east, but anyway, and that Carter will come the other way. So that affects that sort of thing. It also affects the comment you made a minute ago about the possibility of connecting the driveways all the way across the building or all the way below the building. So, that doesn't really affect this development because it's not there yet, but it may happen in the future. So we're trying to keep that in mind with this. To get back to your original question, we can't really reduce that width much in order to still allow that truck to get in there and lift those out of there and empty them.
Well, there's two bins, so one truck would come get one of them.
Right.
I don't know, I just wish there was a way that if you were to train car them, and I don't know, if there's it's just unfortunate that you have to kill that streetscape to empty trash. If there was a softer way that you could allow a truck to access the bins and not require that much width for the other truck that comes on another day to get the recycling or whatever. It just,
If we could get rid of trash and cars, things would be much nicer.
well, or
That's
just
facetious, but anyhow.
you rotate the bins, or I don't know, it's just.
I have actually talked to transportation about carrying pedestrian pavement across the driveway in the past and was told not to. I was told that I had to stop it at either side of the driveway and make the driveway obviously vehicular use, which was bothersome to me.
Even service, like, would
Well,
this be considered vehicular or this service?
It's service in this case, but I definitely will ask the question again, because that's my preference, is when somebody's in a car or truck or whatever, and they're getting ready to turn in that driveway, they need to think, just like you were saying on the other side, they need to think they're driving over the sidewalk.
Well,
But I'll ask the question. And we may be able to, again, that one's 24 feet right now, angled off of the road. We may be able to reduce that also to that narrower width, down to 20 perhaps.
it's just unfortunate that that corner is just so dead. And so much, not only, I mean, we have to deal with refuse, but the angle and the width of the driveway to get to it is just, it's probably killing 25% of that streetscape.
Yeah.
Frontage.
And the location of the dumpsters was unfortunate. One of the neighbors at the meeting said, "Did you do that intentionally?" He
Yeah.
said, "We did not, you know. We're sorry you might feel that way, but like you said, it has to go somewhere. There are different ways that different cities do it. Unfortunately, in Asheville, everything is still pretty much handled by dumpsters. And so that's just, that was my topic of discussion on P and Z. That was it. Bike racks and dumpsters were always my two focal points on P and Z. So.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a trade-off. If you square it off and have it face the street kind of perpendicular, it completely narrows all that and you get more sidewalk. And I guess if traffic is traveling north, it's gonna be way more visible like this, because you're looking, as you're driving north on Ann, you're kind of being drawn right up into the dumpster.
The problem with the perpendicular access is the width of Ann Street. You can't get that truck in there and pick it up.
Yeah, I don't know, it's unfortunate, just see what you can do to
Yeah.
not kill that northwest corner. I kind of like the industrial vibe, with the big windows. Feel like comment architecturally, there's a lot of materials going on. Maybe you don't need to have so many things. When I think of an industrial building, I think of, it's just kind of brick and glass. It's just big dumb brick building with big dumb windows carved into it. This is, there's a lot going on. Thanks for putting up with all that.
Yeah, thank you. Clay, do we take, or Will, do we take public comment for?
We went in for a informal
Okay.
review, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have any other comments or motion to?
So how do you guys feel about that 10-foot step back? Like, there's no dimensions, so I assume, like, if you look at sheet,
Is this where you're?
A102, yeah.
He's talking about the step back at the second one, right? No, that one. Where's the sheet is that?
And then on Ann Street, it's angled.
That's on
and
Carter
There's
Street.
no dimensions, it probably gets to less than 10 foot. The top of that retail isn't square to the rooms above. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that step back in terms of being in the guidelines.
It would be nice if it was occupiable. It'd be nice if it was.
You don't know how you feel about it in the guidelines or in the design? Because they're, I mean, isn't that what's in the guidelines?
It is, yeah,
No, I hate it in the guidelines.
yeah, I'm just wondering if, I mean, I
But this is
understand the
one
purpose
things,
of it.
Other than removing the stupid language about base middle cap, this setback language, step back language is like some of the dumbest stuff we do. I understand what they were trying to do at the time, but the language itself, we need more of a form-based, because this just limits people and it's just kind of silly looking. Staff is applying, we are applying what the UDO requires. This is language right out of the guidelines, out of the UDO. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. for this application.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works better in some designs than
It,
others.
it does, it just, we don't have, it doesn't give people flexibility for what, what they're trying to do is obviously reduce the urban canyon effect. And, but there's different ways to do that, in different buildings, and you can mess with the massing, you can push different elements of the building around.
Side step back, so they could always step aside, but that's not feasible.
It's not always feasible, and because you have to have the way we've got our basemental cap stuff, it really lends itself to we're getting these very kind of plinth, and then an immediate setback, kind of designs. So.
Sorry, I just wanted to see what everybody else thought.
No, I agree. I generally am in approval of this, and I'm looking forward to reviewing it for the applicant in 2 weeks, if possible.
Yeah, it sounds like I've heard from a few folks who are not at this meeting today that they'll be able to make the 31st. So we should be able to wrangle up a quorum for August 31st. I'm thinking it should probably be in person. I don't know if we have the ability to take public comment virtually any longer. What's that? Can we? Okay.
Well, you investigate that. and let
Okay.
us know.
Okay.
It would be a huge benefit if we could online.
Okay.
It would be a benefit to the applicant if no one else.
Yeah.
Okay. If we can do it, then we will do it that way. But it definitely sounds like we'll be able to have that meeting. So I'll notify folks of that, and we'll plan on that for the 31st at 12:30, either here or virtually.
Very good.
Okay.
Uh,
Can't really make a motion to adjourn, but
I
you
move
can-
we adjourn, but can we even vote
I
on
don't even
it?
know. You might be
I
stuck
mean-
here until the 31st. I guess we guys leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're officially open the meeting, so.
It just,